drill into at the moment, the cost of insurance and how to keep the cost of your insurance down. How are you, Mark, anyway?
Yeah, thank you.
What are you doing out there? What's going on?
Yeah, so out there today we've got a lot of sort of stunt work. We're sort of involved with Paul Swift's record-breaking attempt in about 15 minutes, which should be good. So yeah, so we've been doing a video on something which obviously affects every single one of us, is the ever-increasing price of car insurance. So with Tim's help, we've been sort of trying to get this to government level. So we've got a petition going, which will then, we've got an MP to champion this, and then we will take it to the House of Commons to see why it's so expensive in the UK, but yet nowhere else in the rest of the world.
So for those people that know, Tim, you run a website called Motor Claims Guru, don't you?
I do indeed, yes.
He's, in terms of in the car game, the smartest person I know by far. I'm sure you agree with that, Mark.
100%.
Like really annoyingly smart, like really annoying, like I want to slap you smart.
Yeah,
But can't he talk?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. but
Cheeky devil.
But Tim, I bring you in on this because I know you guys have been working together on this. Now, the cost of insurance is something which is spiralling out of control. We're all getting these messages saying, sorry, but your insurance has gone from 800 quid to 1200 quid, and you ring them up and say why, and they just go, COVID, or whatever it is. What is going on out there, and why is this happening?
See, the problem you've actually got is that you want a really short answer, and there isn't one. It's very, very complex. There's lots of things that have bearings on it. There's information that comes out from the Association of British Insurers where they'll just blame the general public, and they'll blame it on fraud, and they'll say it's just the economic environment. But there's loads of factors in the background that actually affect insurance companies where I don't have sympathy with them, but in the very same way that we have to have insurance, they also do the same thing. So the largest amount that they'll pay out is linked to personal injury claims, but also if somebody's very badly injured and they need lifetime care, the cost of that care, if you think about the cost of living attached to it with a multiplier on it, they have to factor that into their costing. Now the problem you've got with that is that they've looked in the last 2 years at the potential rate of inflation based because we've had a bad economic climate, and they predicted over the next 50 years it's going to be millions, but it might not be because we've had changing government. So they're looking at the worst case scenario, but they're not looking at the best case scenario in that inflation might come down and we don't need to have premiums as much as what they are because they won't be spending as much.
Right, okay. Mark, the video that I watched of yours, which I bumped into just watching online, fascinating about the cost of insurance at different times of day and different times of night. Can you just run over the people in the audience what happened? Because this feels illegal to me.
Yeah, so basically there's so many, as you all know, when you go to fill in your compare the market, you've got name, address, age, you can't alter that, you are what you are. But then there's a lot of different other parts where you've got to say your job, where you keep your car, how many miles a year you do. And obviously that all has bearings on the overall price. And we found there was a lot of reasons where, there was stuff, some of the mad things was, it was cheaper to keep your car on the road than it is to keep in your garage. So, and it had significant, it was about £1,000 difference. So, so some of it makes absolutely no sense. We had one guy who was trying to insure 1.2 Fiesta Studio. He was 22 years old and it was £123,000 to insure this car.
How is this happening? So this must be a computer generated error.
It's AI, that's the problem, isn't it? And
yeah, so what you've got from an insurance side of it is that they don't want to be in a position where they're not seen to provide a quote. So what we'll do is we'll give the daftest quote they can find to say, well, we'll quote you, but it'll cost this amount of money, and then if you're daft enough to pay for it, then there's still quids in. But doing it in such a way where when you're on a price comparison website and you see all these variable prices that are an absolute fortune, what they're trying to do is they're trying to distort the marketplace in a situation where they'll know that you'll never ever take the policy out. But what it also then means is that there'll be a very, very few amounts of insurance companies that will then agree to insure you, and it gives them complete freeway to charge what they want, which in my eyes is kind of highway robbery.
And then what we found, I did an all-nighter, and we did a quote at 7 PM, one at 11, one at 2, and then one at 4. And the price, with all the same details, changed throughout the time of night you added those details, which is just mind-blowing. And it went from about £2,000 to about £2,800. And we think the reason being is, if you did it at 4 o'clock in the morning, which was the most expensive, that person is a very risky person who works nights, sort of doesn't get prepared, can't sleep, might be tired, or whatever the reason is, which we were sort of trying to figure out. But it made a difference. And then in the morning we went back on the same thing again. It was back down to £2,000. So there is ways to save money when you are doing the quote. But interestingly, we had a message from one guy who did exactly what we said, saved himself an absolute fortune. Then the next day, Tim doesn't know this yet, they rang up and they cancelled his policy because they said that he'd been changing the details in the quote too much.
Well, hang on. So you're filling in your form online and you're changing to see what's cheaper.
So he's thinking, okay, well, I'll park it on the drive, or I'll park it wherever it is to be cheaper. So he's not lying, and then he's changing his, instead of being a cameraman, he's changed it to a film crew. So again, he's not lying.
Wow.
This is the thing.
Yeah. But what you have with this as well is there's laws in place where the actual specific laws called the 2012 Consumer Disclosure and Representations Act. The law changed in 2015, and in the past it was called Uber My Fide, you put those good faith. So an insurance company would act on good faith for the information that you provide and give you a policy. That changed, and it then meant that from 2012, when asked, so when they ask you a question about something, it's up to you to answer correctly, but they need to ask you the questions. So what's happened with that person then, as long as he's complied with his duties and he's actually provided the answers to the questions that they've asked him, the fact he's being selective and being very careful how he words things, he's still complying with the law, he's not done anything wrong. Now there's also another thing called the FCA Consumer Duties, which is something that's been, it's got quite a fair bit of media in the last few years through the FCA, because they're very concerned about vulnerable people. So when I say vulnerable people, they could be financially poor, is an easy way of doing it. And insurance companies need to be aware that they can't put you in a situation of financial detriment. So if that person is an example, and certainly in reflect of what you said about the quotes with different times through the day and the evening, if you think that most people who work those type of conditions might be NHS workers, they're the people who are looking after society. And in a lot of ways they are vulnerable because they're working long shifts and they don't have the time to spend doing research through the daytime to get a good quote. The only time they might be able to do it is at 4 o'clock in the morning, in a break. Then certainly from an FCA point of view, insurance companies are really breaking the regulations because they're not treating them fairly.
Yeah, and this was like 20%.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like 10 quid.
I mean, that's phenomenal. Okay, so let's give some advice to people listening to this now. We all have cars, most of us do. You want to take out a policy. What is the best advice you can have to keep the costs as low as you can possibly get them?
I think, number one, be truthful, because any excuse you give them to not pay out, they will not pay out.
So in what sense? If you say you park it on the drive and you don't,
exactly,
you won't get paid out?
So here's a good example for you. So I did one last year. So if people don't know me and what I do, I basically fight insurance companies. That's the easiest way of explaining it. But I had a case last year where somebody, he answered it honestly, all the questions asked of him. He advised that his vehicle was parked in his garage overnight, which it was, but he moved house. And the very weekend he moved house, he moved to a house that didn't have a garage but had a drive, but he had his car stolen. Now the insurance company said that he'd been dishonest, or he'd been careless, because he'd not told them that the vehicle was parked in a drive and it didn't have a garage. But there's things there where life changes things, things happen, so there's got to be a certain amount of consideration that insurance companies should be taking to say, well actually, we can see something's changed and he's not actively gone out with the intent to deceive us, we should still pay out. But insurance companies will try literally anything they can to not pay out on a claim.
And did they try to not pay out on them?
Absolutely, yeah. So I spent 6 months fighting them and then got it overturned because I proved that he didn't do anything dishonest. He declared everything as he should have done, it was just a change of circumstances. He had notified him of a change of address. But the last thing you're going to be aware of or thinking about when you're moving house is thinking, oh, I've not got a garage in this place, I'm going to build one.
Do you know what? When I think back about insurance in the 90s and noughties, it felt like you had the insurance and they wanted to be on your side. They wanted to, if you had suffered a loss, they wanted to help you. It felt that way. Now it feels like they want to do everything they can to go, it feels like they employ a team of people to go, right, this person's making a claim, let's analyse the hell out of their stuff and get out of it. It feels like the MO is get out of it.
If you think about how the financial world has changed in the last 5 years, certainly.
Am I right in saying that? Is that right or not? It feels like that.
There is a team, isn't it? The loss adjusters. That's exactly their job. What you're saying is exactly their job.
Yeah. So basically, insurance companies deny, delay, and defend is the approach that they take for it. So it's a war of attrition. They try and grind you down, and most people will get fed up and leave and stop claiming. The instant you cancel a claim or you don't actually get a benefit of a claim, they've made money. because they're not paid out. But what they'll also then do is they'll try and hold you to a burden of proof that they can test. So it might be that if you've got a vehicle stolen, they might have fraud investigators go out. And what they'll do is they will look for consistency in the information you give them. So when you speak to them, first of all, what you might not realise is the phone calls are recorded for training purposes.
What's that? What is that? Recorded for training? What training? What's that about?
Well, what we're actually doing is we're monitoring the stress testing equipment we use to monitor your voice levels when you speak to us.
They're using stress testing equipment.
Absolutely. So we know whether you're lying or not. So what we'll then do is we'll then send out a claims investigator.
So hang on, so when I ring up and make a claim, they're analysing me to see whether I'm lying or not.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we've got.
Is this right? Is it,
Yeah, it's
We've got software in the background. We can check and analyse the information you provide to us. We can measure the tone of your voice, the consistency of what we've got. We'll ask you questions in certain ways and actually ask the same question twice or 3 different ways to see whether you're being consistent. And then what we'll then do at the end of it, I used to work for an insurance company in the past, so this is why I know these things. Indeed. So we'll then send out a claims investigator, but we'll interview you. Now, when you go through being interviewed, it's a stressful situation. Why am I being interviewed? I just want to make a claim.
You're already in a vulnerable position, aren't you? Because you've just had something stolen.
Yeah, but imagine then also it could be. I've got another example with somebody where they had their house broken. Well, the trauma of having your house broken and somebody invading your privacy coming into your house, and then being hauled over the coals by a claims investigator, you're not probably going to be in the best place to be thinking about being mindful about how you word things. So it's clearly balanced in such a way where, you know, it's favouring an insurance company. So there's things where I advise people, if you do make a claim, before you actually make a claim, don't. First thing you want to do is actually just write things down. Make sure you've got a record of what you're going to say to the insurance company before you say it.
So write down what, so you make a claim, write down what you're going to say, and so you've got a record of what you've said.
Yeah, because
Good advice.
they will try and catch you out. And there's things in the past when I worked for insurance companies, and these are things that I used to do as part of doing it, but I used to do it from an engineering point of view.
They hate you. The amount of people I speak to in the insurance world, and you're so infamous. They despise you. They do, because I know your job is to help people and destroy insurance companies.
Absolutely. But it's not to destroy insurance companies. So I'll give you a flip side of it. So some people think I hate insurance companies. I don't. What I hate is commercial bullies. So what I want is parity. I want it to be where we all need insurance, they need to make a profit, they're a commercial entity, but it shouldn't be at the cost to a consumer where they're being financially deprived in some way.
Right. I mean, this brings about the petition, doesn't it, Mark? Can you tell us what we could do with it in terms of, I mean, you're almost there to getting it in Parliament, but getting it asked, but what's the position you're in?
Yeah, so we've got lots of proof of where they have been unfair, where they have been not fair to the customers. So we've got lots of information and a reason for the government to force the FCA to look at all our policies. So we set a petition on change.org, which you go through my website, Mark McCann 64. All we need is your name and your date of birth and an email. They'll send you an email, you confirm that, and when we get to 100,000 votes, we will get this into Parliament, and we'll get them to, because the problem is, like I say, this isn't happening everywhere else. So whatever excuses they've got, it's the same all over the world, and we have obviously viewers all over the world who are saying to us, this isn't happening in anywhere apart from the UK.
Right.
I mean, what I would say as well to people in the audience is, just put your hand up if you've got car insurance.
Yeah. Look how many policies are right there.
Every single one of you is affected.
Yeah.
So go on to Mark's website, sign the petition, because each and every one of you are affected by this. And if you think about how your premiums have been increased over the last 2 years, it's something where unless you take action yourself, it won't change. So it benefits you to get on there, sign it, because the more we can do and the more we can raise and get it in front of Parliament in some way, we can try and check you. You can't guarantee we can change things, but we can certainly try and do something.
And to give you an example how this can change because of the things which are going on, I'll give you one example. There was a guy, again, Tim doesn't know this yet because this is since our last video. He damaged his door. It was a £600 repair. They couldn't get the door, and then they made a load of money. Brilliant.
That's my wife ringing in.
So they couldn't change the money, so they couldn't change the door, so they charged the other insurance company with a rental car for this guy, and it was £14,000 in enterprise rental car bill.
Right, stop. Let's just think about that for a minute. So he had a £600 damage to his door, and then the insurance company will bill, so they gave him a hire car,
Hire
and
car.
the bill for having that hire car over the time that the repair was happening was 14 grand.
£14,000, and obviously
Why?
I think-
Why is that happening then?
Simple reason, the repair they probably made £150, the rental car they probably made £5 grand.
So I'm going to be devil's advocate now.
And we're paying for it. We pay for it.
All of us has a 0.1%
So
of the penny.
so insurance companies, do they work along the lines, who cares who we pay out to? Because we'll just bill them more. Who cares? Is that it?
Exactly that, because on a non-fault claim, they are fighting each other, increasing the prices, making money.
So I'm going to be a devil's advocate on it and now side with insurance companies to give you a different aspect of it as well. So anytime you're involved in a non-fault accident, it comes under an aspect of law called tort, it's a civil wrong. And the head of claim for credit hire is different than it is for repair. So there's two separate heads of claim there where just because you've been deprived of the benefit of your car and it's not repairable, it isn't your fault. So you are entitled in law to an alternative vehicle because you've been deprived of the use of yours. So they have to pay it, so they're compromised by that. But they do have alternatives, but again, there's things here where it kind of works against you. So insurance companies have something called the General Terms Agreement, which the short version of that is, I won't shaft you if you won't shaft me. So what they do is they have this agreement between themselves where if you do get a credit hire car, it's done at a set rate that's lower. Now, what they'll then try to do with that, though, is that because of that exact situation, it might be that a vehicle's not repairable, it could be 5 months of hire for it, they'll top what you can. So we know that
They'll write it off.
they'll try and write it off because they'll go, well, we can't really lump these two claims together. However, what we'll do is we might incentivise the person who's had the car damaged and said, like, listen, we know the situation's going to be what it is, we'll total wash your car, but they're doing it, so not in a situation where they're going to be 14 grand down the line on the credit hire side of it. So they do try it all different ways, but insurance companies, the principle of insurance is that you shouldn't profit from a claim, but the interesting thing is they do exactly the same thing. So when you make a claim, you contact your insurance company, they derive a commission or a benefit from the, so like, say for example with Enterprise, they'll get a percentage of the credit hire, so they make money on it. Or alternatively, if they know the other party's liable for it, they'll direct you into their approved repairer, get the car repaired for less, and then charge a full retail rate. Now, you as a consumer are entitled to get your car repaired wherever you want and have a retail cost of repair for it.
And can you do that? So let's
can.
say Steve, whoever it is, damages his car down here. Oh, don't worry, we'll take it to this garage. Can you say no? Can you still do
You can
say
absolutely no. You can have your car repaired wherever you want. That's it. Insurance companies are now twisted that, like I said, so because that's your lawful right and you can do whatever you want and have it repaired wherever you want, they're saying, well, rather than do that, we'll put it into our approved repair network where we've agreed preferential terms. But what they're then doing is they're getting the car repaired for less, but still claiming the full amount of money from the other party. But that money that they've made isn't their money, it's your money. Because the claim's your claim, not their claim. But they don't tell you.
What?
Yeah.
This whole conversation just feels like I'm just having my pants down and slapped.
Yeah, so if they're using legalities of law from a consumer's entitlement, so I wouldn't fight against it because it's your entitlement, not theirs. But what they're doing is they're manipulating the situation where they're working out how they can benefit. So if you try to profit from your claim, you can't do it. But if they're handling the claim, they can. And how is that fair anyway?
It's making me feel slightly sick already.
And there's one thing which is massive, which we tried to talk on yesterday. So when you pay your money and you think that's a lump of money which you pay for the next 12 months and that goes into somebody's bank, well, it doesn't. They invest that money.
In making more money.
They invest your money
Oh my God.
in stocks, shares, property, and make money out of
Property.
your money.
So you're telling me my insurance is I own a door somewhere in Wales or a garden or a bit of a whatever. So everyone here owns a bit of real estate,
So that-
and they make the profit.
They make the profit, but they don't give us a share of the profit.
So what you have is you've actually got legalised gambling, is the way they do it. So
Legalised gambling. Great.
Absolutely. So what you've got is, if you think you pay your premium, that goes to them. If you make a claim, they lose money. If you don't make a claim, they've still got your money. They invest it, but if those investments tank and they don't make money, they haven't lost their money, they've lost your money. They only lose when you claim.
The other thing which is terrifying, which is this is really not good for insurance, not good for us, is that the other thing which was really interesting was like I had one the other day where I've shown you in the video, the plasterer came up our drive and hit my gate post, right, and knocked the gate post over, and nothing works there now. And I rang Tim and I said, what do I do? Who do I make? Do I make a claim off ours and then get the money off them? What you told me yesterday was really interesting. So I've gone to his insurance, because because I didn't want one against my name, because I know that a no-fault claim still, as they told me, registers against me as an active claim. But what you told me yesterday, which was fascinating, is that I've made a claim off his insurance. So he will pay me, and I'm cool with that, so I'll fix my gate. That's all good. But the problem is now, this is where I end up paying for this. This is the dodgy bit. They've paid me the money to fix the gate that their client broke. But that gets recorded in my area as a claim, so therefore the risk of my area goes up, and now my premium for the next year goes up. So I pay for his
All your fault because you live there.
Say again?
It's all your fault because you live there. You've now raised the insurance in your local area. All your neighbours are going to blame you.
Listen, you're both industry experts, and I think what you're doing is brilliant, because the reality of it is we need to get behind this and get these issues raised. I wish there was an MP listening to this now, because what we're discussing is outrageous. It just feels like daylight robbery. Whichever way you cut it, they win. Whatever, it's just like we're just giving them loads of money to play with. Buy another house, but invest in that company. I mean, they make money from that as well, no doubt, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if they make money, our money that we've earned in good faith and given to them, they invest it, they turn that into a profit, that's just more money for them.
100%.
But
We're not getting any share of that.
But what they're actually doing is, and this is where the con is with it, is that they'll invest it into things like pensions, which is great because it makes our pensions better. They buy more commercial property, but if you buy more commercial property, then you're not paying tax on it because you're buying an asset. So they develop all these, they buy all these assets, but all they've done is they then get loans on the assets, but because they're getting loans on the assets, they're not paying tax on the loans because it's a debt, not a financial side.
This is blowing up, this is blowing every...
And this all starts off with your humble premium of like 500 quid a grand. When you're paying it, it's like, well,
Right,
it
so
morphs.
what we've learned from this is you need to go to markmccann64.com and sign the petition. For God's sake, don't just sit back and do what people do, just going, you know what, I'll let somebody else sign it. I won't bother. Do it. Because we're up to, what, 80,000 signatures at the moment?
Yeah, we're about 80,000, but obviously 100,000 is the limit, but I want to go in there with 250,000.
Okay.
Matt, so just to clarify then, so what's your website address? It's
www.markmccann64.com, and the link is massive, big red button saying,
Okay, do that.
And what was it on YouTube?
sorry,
So-
same. Mark
It's
McCann
the same thing on
64.
YouTube as well.
Okay. All right,
Yeah.
so we need to make that happen. We need to take control of this to some extent, so have some sort of impact. If you want to get in touch with this man here, Tim, it will be a number that I hope you don't need it. But if you do ever end up in trouble with an insurance company or a problem with your car, go to motorclaimsguru.com. Are you .com?
No, he did this yesterday. No S, motorclaim.
Motorclaim Guru. Okay.
Let's have
So
a
you
look.
just deal with your claim.
Yeah,
Motorclaimguru.com, and he is an absolute animal. I've had some conversations where I'm driving along, almost crashing with laughter at the stories you've told me of ripping the pants off insurance companies
I
and
know.
just
You
fighting.
Getting into weird situations though. It's things like with the sandwich that you bought with the blokes in Blackburn.
With what did I buy?
So that Porsche Panamera you wanted to buy the
Oh,
sandwich
yeah,
one when
yeah,
you told
yeah.
to inspect it, and then ended up in a fight.
You did have a fight. Yeah, you actually got into a full-on fight.
You're bigger than me.
He's an animal. Basically, if you have any insurance issues at all, any issues at all, Motor Claims Guru, Tim lives to take on insurance companies. This is how these guys have got together, ultimately, isn't it? Mark, thank you for chatting.
Thank you very much, thank you.
And let's
Thank you.
get that petition signed.
Absolutely.
I'd like to talk about this again tomorrow as well, because it's something we should all know about. So can we have a round of applause for Mark and Tim?
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Dominic.
Thank you very much. Cheers.